Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming to the session where we will be talking about working with your portal using runtime apps. My name is Divesh Goyal. I work as a product engineer on the iOS team in Runtime. In a past life, I used to do Java development, web and server development, but these days, Apple pays the bills. So that's a little bit about me. I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
So I'm Stuart. I work on the .NET team, .NET and Xamarin team. I'm based in Edinburgh, R&D centre there. So I'm over for the week. And I've always been a .NET Microsoft fanboy. I've not swapped.
You're pure.
Yes, pure.
Good afternoon. I'm Xueming. I'm working on the Android team. So also using Java. That's about me. Back to you, Divesh.
Thanks, guys. So that's a little bit about us, but we'd like to get to know you a little better. So how many of you are developers in this room? Everyone. That's good. You're in the right place. How many of you have previously used Runtime? Some of you. How many prefer to focus on .NET? iOS? Android? Java? Qt? All right. So we have a mix of all sorts of people here. That's good. So this is the outline for today's talk. We'll start with just a broad overview of runtime and portals for those of you who haven't used the technology before. And then we'll dive right in. We'll talk about how you can build apps that connect to a portal, that allow users to consume their content from a portal, and then even contribute content back to the portal. So there's 3 broad sections there. Now, for those of you who haven't used the runtime before, ArcGIS Runtime is a collection of software components that bring the mapping and spatial capabilities of the ArcGIS platform to modern desktops, phones, and tablets. These software components in ArcGIS Runtime are built using C++, so that they're portable across all different technology platforms like .NET, Java, iOS, and Android. But because they're written in C++, they still have full access to the underlying hardware resources of the device. So it gives you the best performance. But we don't expose those C++ components to you because, frankly, developing with C++ is a little hard. So what we do is we wrap those components in higher-level APIs using the programming language of choice on that technology platform. So on Android, the runtime is exposed through Java APIs. On .NET, on Windows, it's exposed through .NET. And on iOS, it's exposed through Objective-C and Swift. So this is a win-win-win. We get portability, we get performance, and we get developer productivity because these higher-level languages. Now, all the different APIs that we provide share the same core capabilities because they're relying upon the same C++ components. The APIs also promote a common conceptual model and promote the same programming patterns. So this is really what enables a session like this today, where we have people with different technology backgrounds who can contribute and tell the same story. And it's really great for you because many of you may have to wear multiple hats and develop on a number of different platforms. And the skills that you develop with runtime on one platform instantly transfer over to the next platform. And even if you have the luxury of focusing on one platform, that's great. But many times you work with a colleague in your office who's doing another technology platform, and you guys can't speak the same language, even though they're using the same runtime. But now you can, because they all use the same APIs and patterns. The way you get your hands on the runtime is through one of the SDKs. And we provide 6 SDKs for the programming language of your choice. SDK comes with a lot of conceptual guide documentation, API reference, and samples. And it's really your pick is which ones you want to choose, depending on what platforms you want to target and what form factors you want to build your applications for. We treat them all equally and provide the same capabilities in all of them. Now, runtime is just a small part of this overall Web GIS model that the ArcGIS platform enables. What's at the heart of this platform, or this new model, Web GIS model, is the portal. And it is this portal that allows your organizations to organize your maps and data. It's really like a content management system for GIS data. It contains maps, layers, data sets, applications, and it enables people to discover your organization's content and engage with your organization. But that's not all, because people can then feel empowered to create content and contribute it to the portal, which can then share it out to all its different constituents, be it decision makers, knowledge workers, or even informed citizens. And this Web GIS model is available either in the cloud, which we call ArcGIS Online. Think of it as Esri's portal. Or it's available behind the firewall in your network through the software we call ArcGIS Enterprise. But in both cases, the concept is the same. It's a portal for GIS content. And which one you choose really depends on your IT realities. Sometimes your organizations are not ready to adopt the cloud, or they have strict compliance or governance requirements. And for those cases, you might use ArcGIS Enterprise. But if you don't want to be bothered with administrative tasks and you want Esri to take care to scale it for your needs, then ArcGIS Online may fit your needs. It doesn't really matter to an application developer where the portal is. The portal abstracts all kinds of GIS content, and it does this through something that it calls a portal information model. And at the heart of this model is the organization. Inside the organization, there are groups. Groups contain items. Those items are created by and belong to users. It's a very simple model, and it's exposed to developers through a REST API. And that's where things like the Runtime and the JavaScript API and the Python API use the REST API to bring the portal to your applications. So now I'm going to switch gears and go from the overview, diving right into how do you build apps that access a portal. Well, the workflow is really simple for a developer. You create a portal object. And when you create it, you instantiate it with the URL to your portal. You then load the object. And this is because when you create objects in the runtime which take a URL to a remote service, those objects don't automatically go out and connect to that service. Something needs to happen for them to do that. And we have this loadable pattern that sort of unifies all the different objects in the API that need to connect to remote services. Now, either you as a developer can load those objects, or if those objects are used by other things in the runtime, they will be implicitly loaded. But the idea is here, we delay the loading of that object till as late as possible so we can conserve some resources. So you create a portal object with the URL, and then you load it, which forces it to connect to that endpoint. Optionally, you can authenticate a user while connection, because many portals allow anonymous access. You don't need to be a member of the portal. You can get all the content from the portal that they have shared to anonymous users. But if you want to get access to your own content, you need to authenticate yourself with the portal. The portal provides a number of different ways to authenticate users, and uses a number of different security mechanisms, right from container-based security that a lot of us are familiar with, HTTP Basic, Digest, or Windows authentication, or PKI, which uses digital certificates, to OAuth. And OAuth is really great because it's so secure, because when people log into apps that use OAuth, they're not providing credentials to that app developer. They're actually providing credentials to the organization that's implemented the OAuth. In this case, ArcGIS Online, or maybe your on-premise portals. So the app developer never gets access to the raw credentials. And OAuth also allows federation with different identity providers. So you can bring your enterprise users from LDAP and Active Directory into ArcGIS Online or into your portals. So they get a single sign-on experience. And when you've connected to the portal using an authenticated user, you get access to that user's information. Things like the name, their email address, the thumbnail of their image if they have one. You also get information what role that user belongs to, whether it's a publisher who can create services in that portal, or a user who can just view existing content. And these roles are nothing but buckets of privileges. Some organizations can choose to have custom privileges for each of these roles. So your application can even check for privileges and then light up different parts of the application. For example, if a user is not allowed to share content to a group, then you disable that functionality in your application. You get all of those details, including access to the user's content, items, and groups. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and show you a demo of how you can access a portal from an iOS application. I'm going to go ahead and jump into Xcode. I have a simple application that starts off with the initial screen where the user hits sign in. They're required to sign in. And then we go to the next screen where we show some information about the user. So if you look at this first screen where we have that sign-in action, what it's doing essentially is creating a portal, and we're using this portal on ArcGIS Online, and then it's calling load on it to make the connection. And if an error happens, we show an error to the user, but if everything's okay, we perform the segue, which takes us to the next view. And that next view is where we show the user's details. So we get the user's full name, username, email, etc. So let me go ahead and run this application. I'm going to go ahead and tap sign in. Oh, and you see I don't get any information about the user. What's going on here? Well, what happens is this organization that I'm trying to connect to permits anonymous access. So when I call load, it just connects. There's no user required to sign in, which means my profile view controller doesn't have any user details to show. Now, if that organization didn't permit authenticated access, I'd be forced to sign in. But just so happens the one I picked allows that. So what I can do is change this property, which says login required, to true. And now when I try to load the portal, I will be forced to sign in. Runtime is going to kick in and say, well, you've said you want to connect to this portal using a user, so I'll need you to sign in. And there you go. Now this is the beauty of the authentication manager inside the runtime working. What it detects is one of the connection needs user details, and I don't have any code in this application to present dialog to the user, so it goes ahead and presents some default UI to capture username and password. I can go ahead and enter credentials, and I'll be able to sign into the portal, but I'm going to take this one step further because I want to use OAuth to sign in. What I'll do is I'll just go and uncomment a lot of this code and run it. And basically what I'm doing here is just creating an OAuth configuration for my application, which says this is the portal I want to log into, this is the client ID of the application, and a redirect URL. And I've already gone ahead and created these details ahead of time by creating an application in the portal and registering it. So these are the details that I got for OAuth. Switch back to Xcode. So I created the OAuth configuration with that, gave it to the authentication manager. And I even told the authentication manager that it needs to save those credentials in the keychain so that the next time the user tries to launch the app and sign in, he's not prompted again. Once is enough, and we can securely persist credentials to the keychain. So now if I go ahead and sign in, you see, instead of that default UI view, I get the OAuth page of the portal. And this is in a browser, so if a user enters information, the app developer doesn't get access to these credentials. And now when I go to the profile view controller, I can see that I have the user populated, and I can get all the information about the user. So really simple way to get access to your portal. Just create the portal, load it, and let the authentication manager handle displaying the OAuth page for you. Just give it the credentials, the OAuth configuration you want it to use. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Stuart, who's going to talk about accessing content from the portal now that we've authenticated the user and signed the user into the app.
Yeah, so as Divesh said, now we're going to be looking at how we actually access the content that's in the portal. So move along here. So we've got a couple of bits that we're going to go through here. First of all, I'll cover what is content and what type of contents are available. Then move on to accessing content which is specifically yours and owned by the user which is logged in. Thirdly, we will look at browsing group content, so that's just content which belongs or exists in the group which that user is a part of. And then we will look at more general searches of different content which may not be inside the group and may be in another organisation which you have access to or somewhere else in the portal or not part of the group that you're in. And then lastly, we'll do a quick look at some of the helper services, some of the hosted services which are available on portal. And we won't go into too much detail about those, but Xueming will point you in the direction of some of the sections which will cover those helper services. So because we're short on time, I will move quickly on to content and types. So content in portal and items is slightly different to maybe something that you've used previously like ArcGIS server where there is the service data. Content on portal has that data but also has metadata, so names, descriptions, tags, titles are all attached to that content and allow people to comment and rate, and we can count the number of views and how often that content gets utilised. There's also thumbnails and images that can be used to display that content when we have a portal browser or we're looking at that at ArcGIS Online or on your on-premise portal. And there's also sharing properties attached to that portal, so we can pick and choose who we share that portal content with. So that may be privately, only within our group, or it may can be completely public and can be accessed by anyone who has authenticated into that organisation or that on-premise or ArcGIS Online. So that's a brief kind of summary of what content is. Xueming will go into more detail about content and how we can update and change those values, but for the purposes of accessing content, that's what content is. So this is a kind of going on to the types of content which are available. There's 95 portal item types in the Runtime API. Some of those are first-class citizens and have a lot more support from the runtime than some others do. So some examples of first-class citizens would be web map service, feature services, feature collections. And what I mean by full support of those item types is that we can get those from portal and we can very easily construct a feature service from that portal item type. It's all wrapped up. The API handles it for us. Some examples of second-class citizens currently might be something like KML, PDF, and Microsoft Word. So Microsoft Word, we can get that content type, but there isn't necessarily something in the API to physically work with that at the moment. KML is a sort of interesting example because at the moment in .NET we don't have the capability to create layers from KML, but that is something that is coming, so we'll probably in the next release or the release after that, we'll move into this first-class citizens. So we'll be able to create KML layers direct from KML portal types. So that kind of covers off what content is and the types that we have available. So moving on from that, we'll discuss a bit about how do we access the content which belongs to a user. So we've got a couple of methods here, and I'll just talk through them. So actually, just as we look here, we have a portal object. So for all the code samples you see from now on, we've already seen Divesh authenticate and get a portal item, so we have that portal. So within that portal object, as you can see in this top section, we have a user, and that user has methods exposed where we can get content asynchronously. And what that does is returns a type of portal user content, and that returns everything which exists in that user's root folder, including folders and item types. So we get this my content variable we have here, which is a portal user content, has two collections, one of items and one of folders. And then we can interrogate those two collections and do with it what we like. And then the second example is an overload for the same get content async method, but this one takes a folder ID string. So for example, if we had done this initial query and returned several folders, we can interrogate that collection of folders, get those folder IDs, use this overload, and then get all the items in those subsequent folders. It's very similar. All it's doing is then just getting items from a specific folder rather than the root folder. And they can use that to grab any and all content which belongs to a specific user. So as well as specific user content, there's also group content. So as Divesh said earlier on, there is content which is available to specific groups, and there's some helper get methods here attached to groups for portal, so we can get various bits of content from that. So in this top section, we have getting groups base maps. So this is just a get method which is exposed as part of a portal, which allows us to get the default base maps set for that specific group. So that would allow us to get various base maps which are to be utilized in your organization's applications. There might be 3 or 4 or 7 or 18. It's up to the group to set those base maps that you would use in your applications. And similarly to those base maps, we also have a similar method in this second bit of code here, where we have a method attached to portal which allows us to get featured content. So this does a similar thing. So previously with the get base maps async, we're only getting the base maps which the group wants us to use. But this featured items async allows us to get any type of content which the group has decided to make a featured item. So we can grab those and use those, and they'll be available for us to grab. There's the slight difference between the two methods is that the base maps also returns a collection of base maps, and our get featured items async returns a collection of portal items which we can then interrogate and open up in applications or view. So we've got a quick demo of an application which uses some of the stuff we discussed there. So this is an application. So in this top section we can see here, this application uses the base maps query to get all the base maps set on that group. So this is your default base maps. And puts them in this top section here. And then everything further down from this, so this Android section here and this My Map section is a piece of code which is getting all folders belonging to a user and then iterating through those folders to get the content which is in those. So within our user, they have a folder called Android, and within that they have a test app there, and they also have a folder called My Maps with various maps in. And this portal viewer just allows us to go in here. We can see the content available to this user, and then we can just click on those, and we should open up a base map. or the Wi-Fi may not agree. Let's see if we can open up something different. There we go, Wi-Fi's playing. So we can open up those, and similarly, we can open up some of these maps which are saved specifically in the users folder. So this one here is one covering world time zones, which should load up. So there we go. And that's accessing content which that user's created specifically. And then we can have a quick look at the code for that. So here we have, there's a lot of UI involved in this code, but basically what we've got here is we're using our portal, and we are using this get base maps async, as I said, and returning a collection of items. And then what we're doing is, because that collection of base maps, because we returned a collection of base maps, we've got a property in which we're going to assign here and create a collection of items rather than base maps, which we can then use to display in the UI. And if we can scroll down, so let's just create that collection. And then just down here, we have an observable collection of map groups, which is it's just a custom class that we've created to take collections of items, as you can see here, takes collections of items and a title name. So this base maps text here is what gave us the group section and name, and this items value, we've assigned the base maps property, which has all of the base maps which were returned as part of that get base maps query. And that was what gave us the content for that first section. And if we scroll down here, we have used the get content async method, which we discussed, which returns all the folders. We'd returned all the folders belonging to that user. From that, we'd looped through every single folder, and with each folder, we had used its folder ID to call that overload for that method, which had then returned all the items. And we just did a quick check down here where we're checking to say, actually, is there any content in that folder which we can use? And if we do, we add that collection of items to another property, this time a my content property. And that again gets added to a map group, which then gets added as a section. And if we had several other folders, we would just loop through and that would happen. And then just finally, this groups that we've been adding to and adding these map groups to, we just assign to the actual property, which is housing all the data for the UI, and that's what gives us that portal viewer. So if we go back to the slides, moving on. Dun, dun, dun. So all the methods which we discussed there are all quite general methods of getting predefined content which has been decided by the group or organization which you're part of. There is also find methods which are much more general. They allow us to get content which may be in our group or maybe outside of the group we're part of or not belong to us. So we've got a couple of examples here where we can search for specific content and where we can search for specific groups. So the first example at the top here, we have the find groups async method, which is part of the portal. And it allows us to search for groups. Previously, you may have had to do some searches and you would have to then put in a string with the entire search term of getting groups and not getting applications and various bits and pieces, and it becomes quite a long string. So now what we have is this portal query parameters class, and it's a static methods in it where we can create search terms and query parameters quite easily. So we can do this portal query parameters, create for groups, and we can pass into that an owner and a title, and we'll return a group which matches those values. Equally, we could pass in an owner and ignore the title and leave that as null, and we'll return all folders belonging to that user. And there's various combinations we can do to get any group or title of group that we want. And then we have, as well as groups, we also have a similar method for finding items. The one that we've displayed here, the one I've got here, is find items async. And this is, find items async. So that's the method, and what we can do again is we can use that portal query parameter to define which type of items we want to return. So in this scenario, we've used the portal query parameters, and we're using create search terms for items of a certain type. And that will then take, so we've passed in here along the bottom, portal item type of map service. And then after that, we've passed in a string, which is a search term, and that search term would go against any tags or titles which we had attached to that content. So in this scenario, we would only return items which are of map service and have a title or tag which has a string of search criteria. There's a few different variations of the find items, so we can do find items async, which is the simplest one, but we can also do items with owner, items in group, items of type with owner, items of types, so we can have multiple types specified there rather than one, and we can also do items of type in groups. And pass on, so there's a few different variations of how we can use this portal query parameter to get various different types of content. And then, just before I show another demo, we'll just talk through some of the constructors. So once we actually have the content, it's very easy for us to then create visible layers or maps from that content. And as I said earlier on, there's first-class citizens of the portal API that allow us to easily create these items. So as you can see from the top here, we've got an ArcGIS image layer which we're creating, and it's just a case of using the constructor which takes portal item. So all we would do here is one of the items we'd returned previously in one of the searches, we can pass in here and we'll create a new ArcGIS image layer with that portal item. And that's it. We don't have to pass in any URLs, nothing else. It's just the item. And that constructor will handle all that for us. And then we can obviously then add that layer to our map and our map view, and it be visible in our application. Similarly, same idea, we can create full maps. So whereas we might have done a search previously for a image layer and returned an item, and we've created a layer from that, if we had done a search for portal item types of map, or web map, sorry, we can take that item, put it into our map constructor, and we can create that map. So that means that any maps we have saved, we can open up directly, rather than have to import 3 or 4 layers, add those to our map. We can just get that map straight off the bat. And that allows us to do that. So, a quick demo showing some of the find. So open up a demo here. So it's a very simple demo of using the find methods which I described earlier on. And when this application starts up, we do a search for specific item types who are owned by Esri and who are owned by Esri, and somewhere in the title or the tags they have the term word. And from that search, we've limited the number of queries, the number of items will return to 5, and we take that list of items and we add it to this menu here. So now what we've done is we have various layers. So I didn't mention there, sorry, that the type here is also map services. And we've added this to this menu. And then now what we can do is we can select one of these layers and it should be added to the map. There we go. And then similarly, we can take one of these other items, and this is just using this ArcGIS image layer constructor which we saw previously, and then just adding that to the existing map. So if we just quickly swap, we'll remove that layer as part of that, and add a new one in, and we've just added in this transport layer into the map. And I'll do a quick scan of Visual Studio, so you can just see the code there that does that. So in this scenario, we've just connected to an authenticated ArcGIS Online, So we have a portal object. We've created a query, a portal query parameters. Previously, when we've done it, we've just used the static methods. But in this scenario, we actually create a query which allows us to then set query limits. So that allows us to only return 5, because obviously we're searching against ArcGIS Online. So if we did a search for things owned by Esri, containing the word world, which are map service, we could have about 16,000 items returned. So we've just limited that to 5. And as you can see in here, in the method call of portal query parameters, we just touch on that we only want to return map services owned by Esri and containing the word world. And then we just run that find items async method with that query. We take those items, and then as we said, we take those items, the collection of items, and just add it to that pop-up menu that we had there. And then I'll just scroll down quickly to here. And this just gives an example of how we actually create that ArcGIS image layer and then add it to the map, the operational layer. So we take the selected item, which was part of that menu, and we create a map image layer from it. And then all we're doing is the map view and the map, we go into operational layers and we can just add that layer straight into the map. The items are pretty easy to use in that respect. So if we go back to the slides. So that's kind of covered how we get groups content, how we get content belonging to a user and folders, and then how we do more generic find methods. And then quickly we'll just touch on some of the hosted services which we have. We won't go into any detail about these today because you could have a whole session about analysis or geocoding, and there is sessions about those which Xueming will point you towards, but it's just to point out that actually we do have these services here. There's nothing you need to do to set them up. They just are hosted services as part of the portal on ArcGIS Online, so you'll be able to grab those and use them as you like. And then I will pass over to Xueming.
Thank you, Stuart.
Swap to
Yes,
number
four.
4. There you go.
Thank you. Now, Stuart has shown you how to search for your content in your portal, and now you may want to create your own content and add it to a portal and share with your organization or your groups. So the most common workflow is to create a new map and then save the map to your portal. And to do, a map is generally contained of a base map and optionally some operational layer. In a portal, the portal administrator already configure a default base map that share with all the users in this portal. Then they can use that this default base map when they create a new map. And to get this default base map, you only need to go get your portal information and then get a default base map. By using this method, you can get a default base map. And another way is some of the portal administrator, they also configure a list of base map into a specific group, and then you can use some default pre-configured query string to get a group, and from there you can get a list of the portal items, then which are those pre-configured base map. That's two way. And then with this base map, you can construct a new map, and then add some operation layer by using this method. Once you create a new map, then you can using the save as async method on the map and to save this map into your portal. And to save a map, you need to have permission, the authenticating user must have a create permission to be able to save the map to your portal. And you also need to specify at least the title of this the web map, and also you can specify which portal folder or what description and text if you wish. And also you can specify the thumbnail image for this web map. And when you passing down as the portal folder parameter, this web map will be saved to the root folder of the authenticating user. And the following is an example of how you save your map as a new portal item to your portal. After saving the map completely to your portal, a new portal item with type of web map will be creating to your portal and placed into in my content. And with this portal item, some property will be populating, including metadata such as a unique ID, the title of the portal item, summary, description, text and thumbnail image, and some binary or text data such as the JSON of the web map or feature collection, or an URL to map image service or feature service, or some binary data of tire package or shapefile. And also another property of the portal item is the sharing setting, which is the access level and the group to whom the item is accessible. Now I'm going to switch to show you a quick demo of how you can create a new web map and save it to your portal. And that's the app show on my phone. And to save the time, I already signed into a portal as a publisher so that I have the permission to add new content to my portal. And this app shows a base map, which is I gathered from the default base map of my portal. And you can also switch some base map. Let me show you. So with the base map, this is a list of the base map that configured by the portal administrator. So you can pick one like image with label. Then the base map will change, and I also add a layer to the map. Now I have a map. I can save it to my portal. Tap on the save. And now the map is already saved. We can go to my portal. This is my portal, and under my content, the map is saved to my root folder. And here's the map I just creating. And with this map, that has a title, and there's a type of web map. And if you pay attention to that, that's this after a new portal item is creating, it by default is private. So you can see that the item is not shared, so it's private. Next, I will going to show you how you're able to share your map with your group. So after you create a new portal item, it is by default is private. To get what kind of level of the permission you have of this portal item, you can get the access property. The possible value of the access is private, which means this item is not shared with anybody, and only the owner of this item or the administrator of the organization can view this portal item. Or it could be public. That means everyone who can access this portal will be able to see this portal item. Or it can be organization. Then this item can only be viewed by every member of the organization of this portal. Or you can share with a specific groups. That means any member of a group that this portal item is shared with will be able to access this item. And then there are a few ways you can share your item with either everyone or anybody of the organization. There's a method to do that. Portal item share with async, and when you pass to the parameter of the everyone, then you will share this portal item with everyone. If you pass in the to the parameter of organization, then you will share with every member in your organization. Another way to share the portal item is you can share with a specific portal groups. So to share with some groups, first you need to determine which groups you want to share with, and to know that not every group you can share the item with. For some of groups, the authenticating user only be able to view the content in this group. In that case, you are not able to share with that group. And then with a list of groups, you passing in as the parameter to the share with group async method, then you are able to share with specific groups. And you can also stop sharing with those lists of groups, then only need to call the unshared with group async method, and passing in a list of groups, then this portal item will stop sharing with the groups. And you may want to stop sharing a specific portal item. And once you call unshare async, you will make this portal item private again, and only be able to access by the owner of the item or the administrator of the portal. And also, it will remove all the group from the items group list. Now, I will switch to a quick demo to show you how you can share your portal item. Okay. So that me because I rotated, so the app start again. I can create a new portal, create a new web map, and save it to the portal. And you can see that right now it's private. So, and then I can share with everyone. After it changed to be the access property changed to be public. Let's go to my content and look at the portal item. So that's just the one I just shared. This one, I just share with everyone. So you see that the share right now is public and share with everyone. And now I want to try to share it with a specific group. And it tells me that my item has shared with one group. And let's refresh to see if it is already shared. And you can see that it's shared with this group, Developer Summit 2017. And if I want to, so let's see how I can stop sharing with everyone, stop sharing with a group. Now it's unshared with one group. Let's see, go to the portal and see if it did unshare. So it's back to only become public and share with everyone. Now I want to show, if I want to stop sharing the portal item with everyone, then it becomes private again. We can go back to check from portal. And now the item is not shared, it's become private again. Now we can go back quickly to look at some code in the Android Studio. So you can you can share a portal item with everyone. So share with by passing through, then you will be shared with everyone. Or you can share with specific groups. And first you get a list of groups by using, and then you need to check because when you share with a list of groups, you cannot share with those groups that is view only. So you need to remove those groups from your list. And then you can share this group with a list of share with groups by passing in a list of groups. And then you can unshare this by calling unshare group async. And you can remove all the groups from your portal item. Or you can totally unshare your portal item and make it private again. So that's how you're able to share your portal items with Okay. And for that, Stuart just mentioned that besides web map, there are a lot of content type we already support in the portal. So besides you can create a new web map, you can create other portal item of other types, such as you can create a portal item as PDF or some documentation, like a Word document or some other shapefile, and then you can create a portal item and save it to your portal. And the general workflow is you need to connect to your portal, and with enough permission for this authenticating user should have create permission. And then you create a new portal item and specify the type of this item and passing in title or tag, etc. And then also you need to provide the portal item data when you create this new portal item, and then call add portal item on the portal user. Then that's the general workflow to create portal item. And also to be able to add content or edit content in your portal, you need to have basic license. And also to be able to use some analysis services provided by your portal, you also need to have basic license. So here's some relating sections. If you want to know more about how you are able to build a cross-platform application, or how you be able to create a routing application or use some analysis services, you can go to these sections. And there's more sections like 3D sections or like row ahead. You can go to these relating sections. So for our section with talk about the overview of our portal and how to able to connect to our portal and access this content, and how to search for the contents, and how you can add in new content to our portal. By saying that, thank you, and we are open for questions.
How are you attaching your custom code to the web page? Are you just opening the web page, the code, and adding it to that, or is there some? How are you linking it to?
Sorry, say that again?
How are you attaching your custom code to the portal web page?
So there's quite a lot of custom code there, but that demo which I showed is available online. So there's a load of view models there, basically on portal, and there's a portal view model, a map view model, and various bits and pieces. And there's the group map groups which I've created there. So in terms of actually the UI element which we use as part of the runtime is a map view, so that's the UI control, and within a map view we have maps. So it's just a case of attaching the map or web map you've created to that map view, and that's what displays it on the application. Question?
My group is working on a .NET app, and it makes use of the methods for listing off content in folders, and listing off the folders. And we allow users to log in. We can't predict how much stuff they're going to have. So it's much like your demo app. We want to show a list of everything they've got and let them pick what we're going to use. But if they've got hundreds of items or hundreds of folders, it can take a super long time to download all that and enumerate all that. Curious if you've got any recommendations for how to handle that sort of situation, and also if pagination is a feature you thought about.
That's a great question. So the question's if you want to display the user's content, sometimes user has hundreds of items, and how do we best manage that? So the APIs that Stuart talked about where you can get access to my content, those are not paginated. Simple APIs gives you all the content. If you don't like that, and you know that you want to be able to handle conditions where there's a lot of content, you can use the query methods that Stuart talked about, where you search for items that belong to the user, so you create the right query, and that search mechanism allows you to specify the number of results you want and where you want to start from. So you can build a paginated experience using that mechanism. It's a little bit more work, but we're assuming if you're ready to do the work for pagination, you'll use those APIs. If you're going to do the simple API, then you get all the results. Question?
You mentioned about search. Does that you do not regular expression searches on that data as well?
Questions about search. Can we do regular expressions and things like that? I don't know if we can do regular expressions, but the search syntax is quite elaborate. You can specify owners, groups, types of items, search content. I would actually encourage you to go to the REST API documentation for the portal. That's on the developer's website. And they document the entire search syntax that's then available through the Runtime API because it's just a string you pass in. Question?
I see you are giving the ArcGIS runtime the same capabilities that the web app or the portal administrator has. And what's the idea behind this, or the use case that inspired the development team to implement this new functionalities? Where does Esri is going with runtime in this case? What's the new functionalities that is going to be developed later?
So the question is, what's the road ahead for this portal API? Why we're providing it in runtime? And the idea is we're really encouraging app developers to take a portal-centric model of their users and their content. So, by using the portal, they get access to a lot of analytics. They get a lot of access to data management. And when they put their content in the portal, they want to be able to use it offline. They want to be able to use it in the field, and the runtime needs to work with that. So there are a lot of drivers for people putting content in the portal, and once the content's in there, we want to make sure it's still accessible to runtime. And we build a lot of our own apps that allow you to do this, like collector, explorer, but a lot of business partners are also using that same model to allow people to manage their content.
Can I access to like file geodatabase directly without going through the portal?
Can you have access to the file geodatabase directly without going to the portal? Using the runtime. So, yes, but it's a yes with an asterisk. Because a lot of the SDKs like the .NET SDK and the Java SDK provide a local server. You can use that file geodatabase in the context of the local server and then access it through the runtime. There's no direct read access from the runtime for file geodatabase. We support a separate format that's called a runtime geodatabase. And it's a SQLite-based format, not the file-based format that you're referring to. So if you want to use the SQLite-based format, we have tools in Pro and ArcMap that allow you to take your map and create these runtime geodatabases. But if you're stuck with the file geodatabase format, then the only option for you to be able to use that in runtime is through a local server-based context.
The local server is not available when this time.
I'm sorry?
The local server is not available at the current release of the version 100.
The local server is available
It is
with
available.
version
Local
100.
server wasn't available. Local server wasn't available with the beta, but is available with the current release 100.
Yeah, it should be available. It is available. It should be. We put it out there. Question?
For authentication purpose, we use a username that has a lot of different types of authentication models. Is that anything to do with the named user licensing? Is it the same?
So question is, we showed authenticating a user using OAuth to log into a portal, and is it related to licensing? Is it the same as named user? And you're absolutely right. The user who's signing in has to be a named user of the portal. And when the user signs in, actually that can unlock capabilities on your device. So you can actually use that act of signing in to unlock a license for your app. And we have code samples and documentation on the web that shows how you can use a named user to generate a license for your application.
Follow-up, if you are at the standard licensing model where you're using the licensing instrument,
Can you say that again?
so at the standard level of licensing, there's no named user with a new runtime. It's more at the licensing key or something.
You know, that may be true at this point, but don't quote me on this. Yeah, you're right. For standard, right now, the only way is you need to use deployment packs, but maybe you can come by the island and we can talk about it a little bit more. I'm not sure if there are plans to add another entitlement to a named user to unlock that standard license, but I think those discussions are still taking place. So I don't have a definitive answer for you. We'd have to speak to somebody who's still building out this licensing model. All right, thanks everyone.
Cheers.